The judge's gavel strikes the dark wooden table, and the sound echoes in my bones like an echo of all the years I've lived in silence. Here I am, Margaret Collins, 67 years old, sitting in this cold courtroom with my wrinkled hands clutching a yellow envelope I've kept for 13 years. My heart pounds so hard I'm afraid everyone can hear it. Across from me is my daughter, Christine, in her elegant suit, with her red-tied lawyer pointing at me as if I'm a criminal. Her eyes burn with a rage I don't understand, or perhaps understand all too well. "Your Honor," Christine says, her voice trembling but firm. "My mother has had my children for 13 years without my consent. This constitutes parental kidnapping. I never authorized her to take them." Her words sting like sharp daggers. Kidnapping. That word pierces my chest and lodges deep where I keep all my motherly pains. I look back and see my 3 grandchildren, Daniel, 20, Sarah, 18, and Katie, 16, sitting in the 3rd row. Their faces are pale, confused, as if they're watching a movie they don't understand. My name is Margaret Collins. I am 67 years old. And this is the story of how I fought to protect the children, my own daughter abandoned. Judge Robert Harrison, a man with gray hair and tired eyes, observes me over his glasses. "Mrs. Collins, what do you have to say to these accusations?" My fingers squeeze the envelope. Inside are the proofs of a truth I've held for years, protecting it like a treasure, or a wound that can't heal. "Your Honor," I say, my voice steady, "I didn't kidnap anyone. I simply raised the children my daughter abandoned on my doorstep." "That's a lie," Christine shouts, standing up. "I never abandoned them. I had mental health issues. I needed temporary help." Her lawyer, James Wheeler, calms her with a hand gesture. "Your Honor, my client was hospitalized for severe postpartum depression. She needed urgent medical treatment. Mrs. Collins took advantage of that vulnerability to keep the children and alienate them from their biological mother." I feel the courtroom fill with whispers. Some people in the audience nod as if they've already decided who the victim in this story is. But I know the truth. I've lived it day after day for 13 years. Early mornings, fevers, homework, and hugs when they cried, asking for their mom. "Mrs. Collins," the judge says in a softer tone, "I understand that caring for your grandchildren must have been difficult, but if the biological mother is requesting custody—" "With all due respect, Your Honor," I interrupt, my voice coming out firmer than I expected, "there are things this court needs to know before making any decision." I raise the yellow envelope and hold it high. It's a simple gesture, but I see Christine's eyes widen with what looks like fear. "Here, I have documents that will completely change this conversation." The judge leans forward. "What kind of documents?" "Proof of what really happened 13 years ago. Proof of why my daughter is here today, and it's not from maternal love." Christine turns pale. "Mom, please don't do this." "Do what, daughter? Tell the truth?" "Now, before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to protect someone you love from someone else you love? If this story is resonating with you, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read every single comment. Now, let me tell you what really happened." The judge nodded. "Mrs. Collins, before examining these documents, I would like to hear your full account of the facts. Tell us what happened 13 years ago." I closed my eyes for a moment and transported myself back to that day that changed my life forever. "It was a rainy Tuesday in October," I begin, feeling my voice soften with the memory. "I was in my small kitchen in Phoenix preparing chamomile tea to calm my nerves after a doctor's appointment, where my arthritis had been confirmed to be worsening. Then I heard the knocks on the door. It was near noon. I look over at my grandchildren. Daniel gives me a sad smile, as if remembering fragments of that day. Sarah's eyes are glassy, and Katie, my little Katie, hugs herself as she did when she was a scared child. Christine appeared at my door with the 3 children. Daniel was 7 years old, Sarah 5, and Katie barely 3. They were dirty, their clothes wrinkled, and the little ones were crying from hunger. Christine lowers her gaze. Her lawyer whispers something in her ear, but she doesn't respond. I know she remembers that day as clearly as I do. My daughter entered my house like a hurricane. She carried a plastic bag with some of the children's clothes, all jumbled, nothing clean. She told me, "Mom, I need you to keep them for a while. It will only be a few weeks until I sort out my problems." I asked her what problems, if she needed financial help, if something had happened with the children's father, but she just kept repeating that she would be back soon. My voice cracked slightly. She gave each of them a quick kiss and left. The children ran to the window, shouting, "Mommy, Mommy!" But she'd already gotten into a taxi and was gone. The silence in the room is absolute. That night, Daniel asked me when his mom was coming back. I told him soon. Katie cried because she wanted her teddy bear that had been left at Christine's house. Sarah, my sweet Sarah, helped me prepare dinner with her little hands, as if she understood that it was now my responsibility to keep everyone together. I take a sip of water from the glass the court officer offers me. Days passed, then weeks. I didn't know where Christine lived because she had moved. I had no phone to reach her. The children asked about her every day. Daniel started wetting the bed at night. Sarah stopped talking for almost a month, and Katie developed a cough that wouldn't go away. I watch Christine shift uncomfortably in her chair. Her hands tremble slightly as she fiddles with a ring on her finger. I decided to enroll them in the school near my house. I needed their documents, their birth certificates. I went to Christine's old address, and the neighbors told me she had left the apartment without paying 3 months' rent. The landlady handed me a box of things my daughter had left behind, including some of the children's papers. Judge Harrison takes some notes. "Did you try to report the situation to the authorities?" "Your Honor, I thought it was temporary. Christine had had problems before, but she had always come back. I waited. 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. After a year, I hired a private investigator. I found out that Christine had moved to Las Vegas with a new boyfriend. She was working at a casino. She had a new car, a new apartment, a new life, completely separate from her children. I pull out the first document from the envelope. This is the investigator's report. Photos of Christine at parties, on vacation in Mexico, buying designer clothes, all while I was using my retirement savings to buy school supplies and pay for Katie's asthma medication. The judge examines the photos carefully. "Mrs. Collins, did your daughter ever attempt to contact you during this time?" "She called exactly twice in 13 years, Your Honor. Both times to ask for money. Not once did she ask about the children." Christine's lawyer stands up. "Your Honor, my client was clearly struggling with mental health issues. Her behavior, I interrupt, was the behavior of a woman who chose her new life over her children. Depression doesn't make you take vacations to Cancun while your children don't have winter coats. Thank you so much for watching. If this story is touching your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to make sacrifices for children who weren't technically your responsibility? I love reading your responses. Now, let me tell you why Christine really came back after 13 years. The judge set down the photos. "Mrs. Collins, you mentioned that your daughter's appearance in court isn't motivated by maternal love. Can you explain what you mean?" "Certainly, Your Honor." I pull out another document from the envelope. 3 months ago, my brother Richard passed away. Richard was a successful businessman. He never married, never had children. He considered my grandchildren his own family. I unfold the document. This is a copy of Richard's will. He left his entire estate, $2.7 million to Daniel, Sarah, and Katie, divided equally among the 3, held in trust until each turns 21. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Christine's face goes white. My daughter knew about this inheritance. She knew because she called me 2 days after Richard's funeral. The first time she'd called in 4 years, not to offer condolences, to ask about the money. I pull out another paper. This is my phone bill from that month. You can see the call from her number. It lasted exactly 47 minutes. During that call, she asked me how much money those kids were getting and whether she could access it as their mother. Judge Harrison's expression hardens. Mrs. Collins, are you suggesting that this custody lawsuit is financially motivated? I'm not suggesting it, Your Honor. I'm proving it. I pull out the final document. This is a letter Christine sent to the trust administrator 3 weeks before filing this lawsuit. In it, she claims to be the children's primary guardian and requests immediate access to their inheritance for educational expenses. I hand the letter to the bailiff. The administrator denied her request because I am their legal guardian. Christine filed this lawsuit exactly 1 week later. James Wheeler jumps to his feet. Your Honor, my client has every right to... To what? I ask, my voice rising for the first time. To abandon 3 children for 13 years and then suddenly remember she's a mother when there's money involved? I turn to face my daughter directly. Christine, I changed diapers when you were partying in Vegas. I sat up all night when Katie had pneumonia while you were on vacation. I worked double shifts at 60 years old to pay for Daniel's braces. And now you want to claim them because Uncle Richard's money? Christine's composure finally breaks. You don't understand, she shouts. You never understood. I was young. I wasn't ready to be a mother. Then you should have given them up for adoption, I reply quietly. You should have signed papers and let them have a chance at a real family. Instead, you dumped them on an old woman with arthritis and disappeared for 13 years. The courtroom is dead silent. I'm not asking for sympathy, Your Honor. I'm asking for justice. My grandchildren have built lives here. Daniel is in college. Sarah just got accepted to nursing school. Katie is on the honor roll. They don't know Christine as a mother. They know her as the woman who left them crying at my window when they were babies. I pulled out one more set of documents. Your Honor, I also have here 13 years of receipts. Every doctor's visit, every school supply purchase, every pair of shoes, every winter coat, every birthday cake I bought with my retirement savings. I spread the papers on the table. The total comes to approximately $187,000. Money I spent raising children that weren't legally mine, while their mother spent her money on vacations and designer bags. Judge Harrison looked at the receipts, then at Christine. Miss Collins, did you ever contribute financially to your children's upbringing during these 13 years? Christine's lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head. My client was experiencing financial difficulties, Wheeler began. Financial difficulties? I interrupted. The investigator's report shows she bought a $40,000 car 2 years after leaving her children. She took 4 international vacations. She lived in apartments that cost more per month than I spend in 3 months. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'm not a wealthy woman. I worked as a secretary for 35 years. My retirement income is modest, but I made it work because those children needed me. I gave up my savings, my comfort, my health. I've had 2 surgeries in the past 5 years that I delayed because I couldn't afford the time off from caring for them. The courtroom was silent. Christine had resources. She had youth. She had options. She chose to use all of those things on herself instead of her children. That's not mental illness, that's selfishness. Judge Harrison removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. I think I've heard enough for today. We'll recess until tomorrow morning. That night, I sat with my grandchildren at our kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped them with homework for 13 years. Daniel spoke first. Grandma, we want to testify tomorrow. You don't have to do that, I said. The documents speak for themselves. No, Sarah said firmly. We need to say this ourselves. She needs to hear it from us. Katie, my youngest, reached across the table and took my hand. You're our mom, Grandma, not her. You're the one who showed up every single day. She doesn't get to take that away. I felt tears running down my face. I just wanted to protect you. That's all I ever wanted. You did, Daniel said. You protected us when no one else would, and tomorrow we're going to protect you. The next morning, Daniel took the stand. He was calm, composed, every inch the man I'd raised him to be. "I remember the day our mother left us," he said, looking directly at Christine. "I was 7. I remember standing at the window watching her taxi drive away. I remember thinking she would come back." He paused. "She didn't come back. Not for my 8th birthday. Not when I broke my arm in 5th grade. Not for my high school graduation. Not once in 13 years. He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'm 20 years old. I'm in college studying engineering. I have a life, friends, a future. All because my grandmother sacrificed everything to raise me. She's not my grandmother. She's my mother in every way that matters." His voice grew stronger. "When I was 10, I got really sick. Pneumonia. I was in the hospital for a week. My grandmother slept in a chair beside my bed every single night. She held my hand when I was scared. She read me stories when I couldn't sleep." He looked at Christine. "Where were you? You were posting photos from a beach in Mexico. I know because I found them years later when I searched for you online. I wanted to understand why you left. I wanted to find some explanation that would make it okay." He shook his head. "There is no explanation. You just didn't want us, and that's something I've had to learn to live with." The courtroom was silent. "But here's the thing," Daniel continued. "I don't need you anymore. I stopped needing you when I was 8 years old and my grandmother held me while I cried on your birthday because you didn't call. I stopped needing you when I was 12 and she taught me how to shave because there was no father around to do it. I stopped needing you when I was 18 and she sat in the front row at my graduation crying happy tears." He turned back to the judge. "That woman right there, Margaret Collins, is my mother. Biology doesn't make a parent. Showing up does. And she showed up every single day for 13 years. Sarah went next. "I stopped speaking for a month after our mother left," she said quietly. "I was 5 years old, and I thought if I was quiet enough, maybe she would come back. Maybe I had been too loud, too annoying, too much trouble." Her voice broke. "My grandmother sat with me every night during that month. She read me stories, even though I wouldn't respond. She held me when I cried. She never gave up on me. She never made me feel like I was too much." She wiped her eyes. "Do you know what it's like to be 5 years old and think that your mother left because of something you did? Do you know how many years of therapy it took to understand that it wasn't my fault?" She looked at Christine. "You gave up on me when I was 5. You don't get to ungive up just because there's an inheritance. You don't get to waltz back into our lives and pretend like the last 13 years didn't happen." Sarah straightened in her chair. "I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to spend my life taking care of people who need help. And I learned that from my grandmother, not from you. She taught me what it means to show up for people even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Finally, Katie took the stand. "My youngest. My baby. The one who had no memories of her mother at all. I don't remember our mother leaving," she said. "I was 3, but I remember everything after that." She smiled at me. "I remember Grandma making me soup when I was sick. I remember her teaching me to ride a bike. I remember her sitting in the front row at every school play, every concert, every award ceremony. I remember her helping me with math homework even though she said math wasn't her strong suit." The courtroom chuckled softly. "I remember her letting me crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. I remember her making pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse on Saturday mornings. I remember her telling me every single day that I was loved, that I was wanted, that I was enough." Katie's voice grew firm. "That's what a mother does. She shows up every single day, not just when it's convenient, not just when there's money involved, every single day." She turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'm 16 years old. In 2 years, I'll be a legal adult. Even if you gave custody to Christine today, I would leave the day I turned 18 and go back to my grandmother, because that's where my home is. That's where my family is. That's where I belong." She looked at Christine one final time. "You're not my mother. You're just the woman who gave birth to me. And those are 2 very different things." Judge Harrison was silent for a long moment. I believe I've heard enough testimony. I'm ready to make my ruling. Thank you so much for watching. If this story is resonating with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now let me tell you how this story ends. The judge cleared his throat. In all my years on the bench, I have seen many custody cases. Cases where parents fight for their children with everything they have. Cases where grandparents step in during emergencies. Cases where families are torn apart by circumstances beyond their control. He paused. This is not one of those cases. Christine gripped her lawyer's arm. This is a case where a mother, and I use that term loosely, abandoned 3 young children with their elderly grandmother and disappeared for 13 years. Not because of illness, not because of circumstances, by choice. He held up the vacation photos. These photos show a woman enjoying her life while her mother, a woman with arthritis and limited income, raised her children. These photos show a woman who had the resources to provide for her children but chose not to. He set down the photos. And now, 13 years later, this same woman appears in my courtroom claiming to be a victim of parental kidnapping, demanding custody of children she hasn't seen in over a decade. And the timing, mere weeks after learning of a substantial inheritance, tells me everything I need to know about her true motivations. Christine started crying. Your Honor, please, I'm not finished. The judge's voice was firm. The children in this case are not small children who need protection from a custody decision. They are 20, 18, and 16 years old. They have testified clearly and unequivocally that they consider Margaret Collins their mother. They have no relationship with the woman who gave birth to them, and they have made it clear they do not wish to develop one. He turned to Christine. Miss Collins, you had 13 years to be a mother. You chose not to be. That choice has consequences. He picked up his gavel. It is the ruling of this court that Margaret Collins shall retain full legal guardianship of Katie Collins until she reaches the age of majority. The custody claims filed by Christine Collins are hereby dismissed with prejudice. He paused. Furthermore, given the clear evidence that this lawsuit was filed in bad faith as a means to access the children's inheritance, I am referring this matter to the State Bar for review of Attorney Wheeler's conduct, and I am ordering Christine Collins to pay all court costs and legal fees incurred by the defense. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. Christine collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Her lawyer was already packing up his briefcase, refusing to meet her eyes. I stood slowly, my knees aching from the hard courtroom chair. Daniel was at my side in an instant, his arm around my shoulders. It's over, Grandma. We won. No, I said quietly. We didn't win. There are no winners when a family falls apart like this. But as Katie ran up and hugged me tight, as Sarah joined the embrace, I felt something I hadn't felt in 13 years. Peace. The fear that had lived in my chest since the day Christine left, the fear that someone would take my grandchildren away, finally released its grip. They were safe. They were mine. And no one could change that now. 3 months after the trial, I was sitting on my porch watching the Arizona sunset when a car pulled into my driveway. It was Christine. She looked different, thinner, older. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a faded t-shirt. She didn't get out of the car at first, just sat there, staring at the house. Finally, she walked up the path to where I was sitting. Mom, Christine. She didn't try to sit down, just stood there, hands shoved in her pockets like a teenager caught breaking curfew. I'm not here to cause trouble. I needed to say something. I waited. I'm sorry. 2 words, 13 years late. But something in her voice made me believe she meant them. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now, what I did, how wrong it was. What changed? I asked. The judge's words. hearing my own children testify against me, seeing the way they looked at me, like I was a stranger. She wiped her eyes. I am a stranger. I made myself a stranger. I nodded slowly. What are you going to do now? I got a job. A real job, not the casino stuff. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm trying to become someone who deserves to be in their lives. Someday, if they ever want that. That's not up to me, I said. It's up to them. I know. She turned to leave, then stopped. Mom? Thank you. For raising them. For being what I couldn't be. I watched her drive away. I didn't know if I would ever see her again. I didn't know if she would really change or if this was just another performance. But for the first time in 13 years, I felt something other than anger when I thought about my daughter. I felt hope. Not hope that she would become part of our lives again. That ship had sailed long ago. But hope that maybe, somewhere inside the woman who abandoned her children, there was still a person worth saving, even if that person would never be their mother again. 2 weeks after Christine's visit, I received a letter in the mail. It was from her. Handwritten, not typed. That surprised me. Dear Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, about becoming the woman I would have wanted their mother to be. It's the hardest thing anyone has ever asked me to do. For 13 years, I told myself stories. I told myself you were controlling. I told myself the kids were better off without me. I told myself I'd go back when I was ready. But I was never going to be ready because I never really wanted to be. The truth is, I was selfish. I wanted my freedom more than I wanted my children. And by the time I realized what I'd lost, it was too late to get it back. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm trying to change. Not so I can be part of their lives. I know that's not my decision to make, but so I can live with myself. Thank you for being the mother I couldn't be. Thank you for loving them when I didn't. Christine. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd show it to the children. Maybe I wouldn't. That was a decision for another day. But for the first time in 13 years, I felt like there might be hope for my daughter after all. Not hope for reconciliation, not hope for a happy ending where we all become one big family again. Just hope that she might finally become a decent human being. And maybe, just maybe, that would have to be enough. Epilogue. 1 year later, I'm sitting in my garden watching the tomatoes I planted in spring grow. Daniel graduated with honors from college and got a job at an engineering firm. Sarah was accepted into nursing school with a partial scholarship. Katie, now 17, leads her school's debate team. Uncle Richard's inheritance remains untouched in their trust accounts, waiting for each of them to turn 21. But most importantly, my grandchildren have flourished without the constant shadow of fear and uncertainty. The media picked up our story after the trial. A local news station did a segment on grandparents raising grandchildren. I didn't want the attention, but the letters that came afterward made it worthwhile. Dozens of grandmothers, and a few grandfathers, wrote to me. They were raising their grandchildren too. Some had legal custody, some didn't. All of them felt alone until they saw our story. I started a support group at the community center. We meet every other Thursday. Sometimes there are 5 of us, sometimes 15. We share resources, advice, and most importantly, we remind each other that we're not alone. Daniel came to one of the meetings last month. He spoke about his experience, about growing up with a grandmother instead of a mother, about what it meant to him. She didn't have to take us in, he said, looking at me with tears in his eyes. She was 54 years old with arthritis and a fixed income. She could have called child services. She could have said it wasn't her problem. But she didn't. She opened her door and her heart, and she never closed either one. After the meeting, a woman in her 60s approached me. She was raising her 4-year-old grandson. Her daughter was in prison for drug charges. "How do you do it?" she asked. How do you keep going when you're tired and scared and you don't know if you're doing the right thing? I took her hand. You do it because that child needs you. You do it because love isn't a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. And you do it because someday that child will look at you the way my grandchildren look at me. And in that moment, you'll know it was all worth it. Sometimes people ask me if I hate Christine for what she did. The answer is no. I don't hate her, but I don't excuse her either. I understand she was young when she had her children. I understand that motherhood can be overwhelming. I understand that we all make mistakes. But I also understand that some mistakes have permanent consequences. And choosing to abandon your children isn't a mistake. It's a decision that defines who you are as a person. Christine chose her new life over her children. I chose those children over my comfort. We both live with the consequences of our decisions. The difference is that I can sleep peacefully at night, knowing that I always put the children's well-being first. She will have to live forever, knowing that she abandoned them when they needed her most. I heard through a mutual friend that Christine is doing better. She's been in therapy for 6 months. She has a stable job. She's not asking for money anymore. Part of me is glad. Not because I think she'll ever be part of my grandchildren's lives again. That ship has sailed. But because she's still my daughter. And despite everything, I want her to find peace. Maybe someday, when the children are older, they'll decide to reconnect with her. Maybe they won't. That's their choice to make, not mine. But I hope that if they do, they'll find a woman who is truly changed. A woman who understands what she lost and why she lost it. A woman who can accept that mother is just a word and that the real meaning behind it has to be earned. Last week, Katie asked me something that surprised me. Grandma, do you think I'll ever want to meet her? Really meet her, I mean. I don't know, sweetheart. That's a decision only you can make when you're ready. Would you be upset if someday I decided to? No, my love. I would be proud of you for making your own decision as a responsible adult. And if you decided never to meet her, I would be proud of that too. The choice is completely yours. She hugged me then. This girl who had grown from a scared 3-year-old into a confident young woman. Thanks, Grandma, for everything. For choosing us when she didn't. If there's one lesson in all this, it's that justice doesn't always come in the form of punishment. Sometimes justice is simply each person receiving exactly what their actions deserve. I deserve the unconditional love of my grandchildren because I gave them unconditional love for 13 years. Christine deserves the absence of that love because she chose to be absent for 13 years. It's not revenge. It's natural consequence. True love doesn't abandon. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't set conditions. It simply is. Constant like the dawn, strong like the roots of an old tree, silent like a prayer that never ends. And that, at the end of the day, is enough. My name is Margaret Collins. I am 68 years old. I am a grandmother who became a mother when her own daughter couldn't, or wouldn't, do the job. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because that's what real mothers do. They show up every single day, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how tired they are, no matter what it costs them, they show up, and they never, ever give up. Thank you so much for watching my story. It means more than you know that you stayed until the end. Please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss my next story, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You'll love it. See you in the next one. With love and strength, Margaret.